Max Verstappen's shock ultimatum to Red Bull. Red Bull thought its four-time champion was locked in until 2028. Then word leaked of a performance clause that lets Max Verstappen walk if the team slips from the sharp end. Now the Dutch superstar is quietly sounding out Mercedes over coffee on a Sardinian yacht, while his father trades barbs with the suddenly vulnerable Christian Horner. Is this the dawn of a blockbuster transfer, a masterclass in contract brinksmanship, or the first hint Verstappen might step away altogether? Buckle up, the paddock's worst kept secret just detonated. Before we unravel the future of Max and Red Bull, do us a favor. If you're into stories like this, hit the like and the subscribe button. It helps us keep going, and we've got more coming that even goes deeper. The ultimatum that rocked Red Bull. Because in mid-2025, Red Bull's seemingly untouchable empire began to crack. And at the center of it all was Max Verstappen. The reigning champion locked into a contract until 2028 suddenly had an escape hatch. A performance clause buried in that long-term deal reportedly gave him the option to leave early if the team couldn't deliver. And by the halfway point of the season, Verstappen was third in the standings, just low enough to activate the clause. Quietly, but unmistakably, the ultimatum had been triggered. This wasn't some dramatic press release or mic drop moment. Verstappen never said it outright. He didn't need to. The terms were built into his contract from day one. Stay at the top or give him a way out. Originally, fans speculated he needed to be in the top 3. Then came fresh whispers. It wasn't top 3. It was top 2. Either way, he wasn't there. And that meant technically Verstappen was free. But the clause was just the tip of the iceberg. Behind the scenes, Red Bull was already in turmoil. Verstappen's camp, particularly his father Jos, had already grown restless. Jos had publicly clashed with the team principal Christian Horner the year before, right? And wasn't shy about calling for changes. He openly said Horner should step down. That wasn't idle noise. It was part of a deeper rift within Red Bull's power structure. For over a year, the team had been locked in a behind-the-curtain battle, a tug-of-war between Horner and longtime advisor Helmut Marko. Max's loyalty to Marko wasn't subtle. When rumors swirled that Marko might be pushed out, Verstappen made it clear, if Marko goes, I might go too. He never had to yell or throw ultimatums. His silence did the work. He had leverage, and he knew how to use it. Then came the blow Red Bull couldn't brush off. Adrian Newey, the architect behind their most dominant cars, announced he was leaving in the early 2025. It was a departure from the brain trust that had defined Red Bull's success for over a decade. Newey's 13 titles within the team made him irreplaceable. His exit sent shockwaves through the paddock and landed Verstappen in a very unfamiliar position, staring down a future without the people who had built his dynasty. Newey wasn't alone. Sporting director Jonathan Wheatley left for Sauber. Rob Marshall jumped ship to McLaren. Strategy boss Will Courtney was next, also bound for McLaren. Red Bull's inner circle was thinning out, fast. Meanwhile, on track, the cracks were showing. Verstappen still driving out of his skin, he sat third in the championship. The car was sluggish. The team was slipping to fourth in the constructors' standings, and the second seat, a complete mess. Sergio Perez had been dropped. His replacement, Liam Lawson, lasted 2 races. Yuki Tsunoda was called up, but results were dismissal. He was finishing dead last in multiple Grand Prixes. It became the running joke of the paddock. Red Bull, the team known for its ruthless, effective driver academy, suddenly couldn't fill the second seat. Verstappen was carrying the team, again, but now it looked like he was doing it all alone. And yet, the most telling moment came not from Max's mouth, but from what he didn't say. In press conferences, he dodged every question about his future. Same answer as last year, he would say, right? Let's focus on driving. He wasn't lying, but he wasn't committing either. Even Horner admitted Max had passed on multiple chances to confirm he'd stay in 2026. That silence spoke louder than any headline. And then, just when things felt like they couldn't spiral any further, Red Bull's owners made the call. After 2 decades, Christian Horner was out. On July 9th, he said his goodbyes to staff and Milton Keynes. It was the bombshell of all bombshells, but to those paying attention, it had been brewing. Horner had lost the support of the Verstappens, of Marco, of Red Bull's Austrian leadership. The team investment's Max Verstappen was too vulnerable to risk. With Horner gone, Marco subtly suggested that Verstappen was now more likely to stay. But nothing was certain, because Max never asked for chaos. He asked for a competitive car and a team he could trust. The secret meeting in Mercedes. But as the trust wavered, whispers began to spread. Whispers of a meeting no one could officially confirm, but everyone seemed to know happened. In early July 2025, eagle-eyed fans noticed something curious. Verstappen's private jet had quietly left Nice and landed in Olbia, Sardinia. On that same day, Toto Wolff's plane touched down at the exact same airport. Coincidence? Maybe. But then came the kicker. Both men's luxury yachts were spotted cruising off Sardinia's Emerald Coast, barely a few nautical miles apart. And suddenly, the F1 world lit up. Social media connected the dots first. Former driver Ralf Schumacher added fuel, telling German media there was no coincidence in 2 yachts quietly sailing side by side. They might have had coffee, he said with a wink. Light in tone, but unmistakably meaningful, right? The suggestion was clear. Verstappen and Wolff had met. And that wasn't just gossip. Schumacher, close with Red Bull insiders and connected across the paddock, believed that Max had mentally checked out. He had mentally checked out of Red Bull's chaos. Once that line is crossed, though, he said, it's just hard to come back from it. Of course, nobody on record would confirm a meeting. When asked, Red Bull's Helmut Marko brushed it off. Max, he said, he can meet whoever he wants. But he didn't deny it outright either. And while Marko insisted nothing happened on the island, he also added a line that gave the game away. Everyone is talking to everyone, he said in a subtle tone, acknowledging the informal conversations, especially in a driver market this volatile. So he's pretty much saying that these conversations were not just possible, they were inevitable too. Mercedes, on their side, they played it cool. Toto Wolff, when asked directly, never said that the meeting didn't happen. Instead, he leaned into the gray area. It's clear, he told reporters, that every team principal is exploring what a 4-time world champion might do in the future. He claimed that everything was transparent with George Russell, his current driver, that Mercedes wasn't hiding anything. But in the same breath, he added, I prefer to have those conversations behind closed doors, which kind of said it all. Even George Russell accidentally let some truth slip. At Silverstone, he admitted his own contract extension talks were on pause because Mercedes was pursuing Verstappen. He later backtracked, saying he was confident he'd stay, but the comment was already out there. Mercedes wasn't just curious about Verstappen, they were positioning themselves for him. And let's be honest, this wouldn't be the first time a secret meeting rewrote F1 history. In 2012, Niki Lauda personally visited Lewis Hamilton's family to pitch Mercedes. The deal stayed hidden for months. Same with Vettel's quiet talks with Ferrari, long before he even wore red. These things don't happen over email. They happen in villas, on yachts, in private lounges where nobody's watching. And there's one more piece that's hard to ignore. An Italian newspaper, La Gazzetta dello Sport, reported that Mercedes' parent company had already approved a buyout offer, $120 million, to trigger Verstappen's exit clause, if it came to that. That kind of number doesn't leak by accident. It's the kind of figure you float around when you want Red Bull to know we are serious. For Red Bull, this was worst case scenario unfolding in real time. Their star driver wasn't just frustrated, he was entertaining other offers. And not just any offer, the biggest one of all. Verstappen was ready to walk, and Toto Wolff had made sure Mercedes was first in line to catch him if he does. What Verstappen and the teams are saying. And yet, The man at the center of it all, calm, calculated, almost indifferent. Max Verstappen wasn't denying the rumors, but he wasn't feeding them either. When asked if he'd still be at Red Bull in 2026, he offered a shrug wrapped in a sentence. I don't think we need to talk about that. Not exactly a pledge of loyalty, not exactly a farewell either. That's the thing. Drivers who are staying usually say it loud. Max? He left the door cracked open, and everyone noticed. As ESPN's Nate Saunders pointed out, Verstappen passed on multiple chances to shut the story down. Instead, he played it cool, neutral, which in F1 language means one thing: leverage. Still, he dropped hints, frustration with the car, growing tired of repeated apologies after bad weekends. When asked about the team chatter, he cut straight through. What people say here doesn't interest me that much. I determine my own future. No yelling, no drama. Just a clear reminder that he's in control now. But while Max chose his words with care, the teams around him weren't nearly as quiet. Christian Horner, before his exit, tried projecting calm. He called the rumors noise and reminded everyone that Red Bull had been Max's career home. But even Horner couldn't resist foreshadowing. There will be a day that there is no more Max at Red Bull. And he wasn't wrong, he just didn't expect it to come so soon. At Silverstone, Red Bull even put teenage prospect Arvid Lindblad in a practice session. Just a test? Maybe. Or maybe a signal we're preparing for life after Max. Helmut Marko was less subtle. Yes, there were exit clauses in Max's contract, he confirmed, but no reason to activate them, at least not yet. Then Red Bull slipped in the standings, and Marko, never one to sugarcoat, admitted that Max drives where he can win. He even name-dropped Aston Martin as a project that fits what Max might want. That's not just speculation, that is pressure. Meanwhile, Toto Wolff played it with trademark finesse. He called signing Max a no-brainer, but insisted that talks were just exploratory. No offer, no timeline, just a lot of interest and a quiet readiness, in case Max gave the signal. George Russell, caught in the crossfire, admitted his own contract talks were on pause, and that said it all. Even McLaren's Zach Brown weighed in, half amused and half wary. Max and Mercedes? That's scary. He laughed, right? Brown made it clear, though, he wasn't in Verstappen's race himself, but he understood what that pairing would mean. Title chaos. And then there was Aston Martin. They said very little, but behind the scenes, they were very loud. Rumors swirled that Lawrence Stroll would even sideline his own son if it meant getting to Max. Mike Crack publicly said the door is always open. Between Honda engines, Adrian Newey, and a brand new factory, they had a shiny pitch, one Max probably would definitely hear. Through all of this, Verstappen never raised his voice, but his silence, it screamed. Who could replace Max at Red Bull? And if that silence turns into an exit, Red Bull faces the biggest driver decision of the modern era. How do you replace a generational talent who built his legend in your car? The short answer, you don't. You rebuild, quickly, smartly, and with a very different plan. If Verstappen walks, Red Bull's approach likely splits two ways. One, secure a proven top-tier driver to steady the ship. Two, fast-track a rising star to shape the next era. And in 2026, the short list is already taking shape. At the top is George Russell. He's talented, experienced, and may suddenly become available if Mercedes wins the Verstappen sweepstakes. A quiet rumor in the paddock suggested a potential trade. Max to Mercedes, Russell to Red Bull. Russell's brings speed, maturity, and just enough edge to thrive at the front. He also is one of the few drivers who's battled Max since karting days. If available, Red Bull will not hesitate. Then there's Isaac Hadjar. Homegrown, fast, and hungry. After a strong F2 campaign and a debut year at Red Bull's junior team, he's on the radar. Think of him as Verstappen's prototype. Aggressive, fearless, a raw diamond. Promoting him in 2026 would be bold, but Red Bull has done it before. Speaking of bold, 18-year-old Arvid Lindblad got a surprise run at Silverstone. Red Bull doesn't just hang out at practice sessions for fun. That test said, we're watching you. Too soon for a lead role? Maybe. But with the right veteran alongside him, Lindblad could be their next big project. For a safer pair of hands, there's Carlos Sainz. Once a Red Bull junior, now a race-winning veteran with something to prove. He's expressed disappointment at not being picked as Max's teammate in the past. If the seat opens now, the timing might finally line up. Sainz has the skills and maybe the motivation to anchor a post-Verstappen rebuild. And if Red Bull wants calm stability, enter Valtteri Bottas. No fireworks, but plenty of technical feedback and experience under pressure. He'd be the stopgap, the Perez 2.0, someone to hold ground while a rookie finds their feet. What's clear is Red Bull has the scenarios mapped out. The names are real, the options diverse, but whoever gets the nod, they're not replacing Verstappen. They're just writing the first line of whatever Red Bull becomes next. What happens if Verstappen leaves? But what happens to the rest of the sport if Max Verstappen actually leaves? The short answer is, it's a big shift. F1's power balance, team strategies, even sponsor dynamics could all be reshaped in one stroke. Red Bull's entire 2026 project hinges on continuity. New engine, new regulation, a fresh partnership with Ford. Max was supposed to be the pillar that held it all steady through the turbulence, but if he walks away at the end of 2025, Red Bull heads into a reset year without the driver who masked weaknesses and maximized wins even in flawed machinery. Without Max, the cracks in Red Bull's power strains, still unproven, could show fast. As Helmut Marko bluntly admitted, if Max doesn't think they can win, he won't stay. And without him, Red Bull's new era risks starting in chaos. An engine team without credibility, a lead driver without momentum, and a design department without Adrian Newey. For a team that last year ago looked untouchable. That's a brutal term. Meanwhile, the door opens elsewhere. Mercedes with Max and Silver could return to dominance, just like they did in 2014, with Hamilton at the dawn of the hybrid era. This time, it's Verstappen leading the charge. If their 2026 power unit delivers, as many in the paddock suspect it will, they become the team to beat again. Toto Wolff gets his generational talent, and the political pendulum swings back to Brackley. Aston Martin, also lurking. With Honda engines, newly designs, and Lawrence Stroll's full ambition, they're not a midfield team anymore. If Max doesn't land there, someone like Sainz might. But if he does, it could instantly make them title contenders. Imagine that. Max and Honda reunited, but wearing green. Ferrari, McLaren, they benefit too. Even just from Red Bull destabilizing. A Red Bull without Verstappen is a team beatable again. That's opportunity. Even commercially, the ripple is massive. Sponsors, Dutch fans, the very aura around Red Bull, it follows Max. And wherever he goes, the Orange Army will follow. The Zandvoort grandstand might stay packed, but maybe one with Red Bull flags. If Max Verstappen really walks, this won't just be a transfer. It'll be a power shift the sport hasn't seen since Hamilton left McLaren. The summer break is closing in, and everything is in play. But where do you think Max ends up? I want you to drop your theory below, and don't forget to subscribe, because the story is far from over.